Have you had those times in your life where it feels like everything's ground to a halt? You're not getting the results that you thought you should have been. Maybe some opportunities have disappeared, and your instinct is just to work harder, to push on. You may have had other people suggest to you the same thing. You've just got to work harder. It doesn't always work that way. And today I want to tell you what the alternative is when it is important for you to keep working hard, and when actually that's the worst thing you can do. I'm Ian Hawkins, and this is Sport is Life. The purpose of sport, as I see it, is to see your vision become a reality. Find your voice, create strong connections, and learn to trust your body. You may have heard it from coaches, athletes, captains of teams, anyone from the team saying, when they're in a bit of a hole, we just got to work harder. We just got to get back to the training paddock and work harder. And sometimes that's what happens in life as well, when things aren't going quite right, when it feels like everything's ground to a halt, feels like just can't get anything started. Maybe a few opportunities have fallen flat. Maybe a few projects have disappeared. You might have had that same thought. Just work harder now. I just got to push myself through this next time. What happens though, if you're prone to burnout, and if you don't identify with that term burnout, you have those moments where you just get so tired, so weary. It's like physically you can keep going, mentally you can keep pushing through, but you're struggling. Emotionally, you've got enough to continue to persist, but there's just a tiredness that's hard to explain that's playing out for you. And if you're prone to that sort of period of time, maybe towards the end of terms, if you're still at school-age children, or if you work in the schooling system, or just when you're coming to the end of a long block of something, you just get that weariness, you'll keep going because you've got that really strong will, but really you probably know you need a break, you need a rest. And what happens then, everything grinds to a halt, you get in a bit of a hole, and this idea of just working harder is the worst possible thing you could be doing, because that's just going to keep you in that place of feeling stuck. And when it feels like everything's ground to a halt, and eventually it's going to catch up with you and your body's going to tell you just need to stop. You can't keep going. So if it feels like that things haven't quite worked out, sometimes the best thing you could do is step away, is just take a day off from whatever it is you're doing, or just lighten the load a little bit. Take all the pressure off yourself. Don't just basically, if you're looking at some opportunities that you feel like, they were coming, you had these great possibilities and then they've just disappeared, just let them go. Just say, look, I'll just park that, and if it comes back, so be it. But you just got to detach from the outcomes of all those things. And instead, get yourself rested, get yourself back physically. So that might mean more sleep. That might actually either laying off some of the exercise or getting back to exercise. Mentally, it's about being able to switch off. So it might mean a detox from your phone, giving yourself 48 hours away from your phone. If you can do longer, even better. That's a really powerful exercise, and you'll really notice it. And what you'll notice is, after the withdrawals for the first few days of constantly thinking, I've got to check my phone, is that you'll realize just how much wasted time you have on there and how much more free time you create when you have that break. Mentally is also journaling, getting things out of your head. Of course, meditation, I'm a massive fan of, to help you switch off mentally, because the brain doesn't switch off when you go to sleep. It is actually quite active. So if you're not allowing yourself space to properly switch off your brain at other times, like getting out in nature, surfing, people who are surfers, they talk about the same sort of meditative experience. I loved when I saw the description of the word forest, and actually the word for rest in there. So the forest is for rest. So get yourself out in the bush and switch off. And emotionally, Sometimes you can have, when there's a lot going on, maybe there's a lot going on for the people in your world, the people closest to you, for you, if you've had a few different issues come up with other people or in your relationships or just anything, then that can also contribute to the burnout. And sometimes it's detoxing from some of those people as well, but it's also starting to develop that ability to emotionally regulate. So that means having the ability to not just suppress emotions and not allow yourself to be always emotional, but to be able to process it using a number of different tools. Meditation's another good one for that. There's a number of different processes which we go into great depth about, but a lot of those are similar to what I talked about mentally. They're learning to switch off. They're learning to allow yourself to feel certain emotions, but actually work through whatever the emotion is really quickly. And like I said, meditation's a really good way of doing that. Sometimes it's also just being able to, in the moment, acknowledge that you're feeling a certain way, and rather than reacting, just stepping away from the situation and giving yourself space just to sit with whatever the emotion is, not sitting with it for days, months or years, but just sitting with it enough to go, what actually is going on here? Like, why am I reacting like this? And having some bit of a personal debrief around it. So when you can give yourself space physically, mentally, emotionally, then you can get yourself back into good habits quickly, get yourself organized quickly, rather than just pressing on. Sometimes when you get yourself to that point of burnout, you've got things a little bit unorganized or maybe a lot unorganized. So I know when I'm hitting burnout, because my desk will have just stuff everywhere. At the moment, it's pretty good. I've got a couple of piles here, and I know where everything is. But if I've got myself to that point, there's just stuff everywhere. So sometimes the best thing you can do is actually just get organized, is get all the thoughts out of your head, to do a brain dump into your workbook or your journal or whatever it is. Record all the things that you need to do, work out which is the most important, and then just write a plan for just that. The rest of it's going to have to wait, because the most important thing has to be done first. And then when it's done to completion, or to all that you can do for that particular part of it, then move on to something else. And when you can focus on just one thing at a time, then you'll find that you're able to stay so much more focused. So, like I said, rather than pushing on and just working harder, it's being able to take that break, give yourself the space in all of those, that holistic space in all those different areas that I've already mentioned, mentally, emotionally, physically. So body, mind, and heart, or soul, if you like to put it. Soul more into that spiritual side of you, which we won't go into here, but that's that inner relationship. So by giving yourself that space and then focusing on getting everything out of your head and getting organized again, you can basically jump about 4 steps of the cycle and get yourself back into that space when things are going pretty well. You get yourself in a flow, things are working well, you got yourself into a bit of a groove. That's when the results come. Now, the next step, once you get to that point, is that you start going, oh, wow, I feel good. You stop doing the things that got you back to feeling good, some of the things I've already mentioned, and then you push yourself too hard, then you start the whole cycle again. So, and if you look at it from the sport perspective as well, like when a team's just going, oh, I just got to work harder, sometimes the best thing you can do is actually step away. It can be have a rest, or at least take stock and go, well, what is going on here? Do we need to do more physically? More often than not, that's not the case. Do we need to give ourselves a rest mentally and emotionally? And if so, what are the things that we need to do to recharge? We can see from just about every episode that the similarities between what goes on in a sporting environment, what goes on in your everyday life, and then being able to map across each direction. There's so many great ideas that you're going to get by doing that, to help you solve one problem with another part of your life, mapping it across and trying to replicate as much as you can to that different situation. So just working harder is not always the right thing. Sometimes It is, if you're not working harder and you know you need to. But if you're already getting to that point where you're feeling like working harder, you just think, I can't squeeze anything more out of the lemon, then try some of those things I've talked about today. Time to take stock, to relax, and then you're going to get yourself back on track and into that really nice flow that gives you the consistency and the results that you know you are capable of far more often, and that's going to help you to accelerate results and have a level of satisfaction from having that consistency that's going to have you enjoying your life and your work and your sport or whatever it is that you do in your life. You're going to be enjoying that so much more. You've taken the time to listen to this whole episode. Now it's time to take action. Commit to one thing you've learned today and make it happen. And to avoid any obstructions, join the Sport is Life movement by clicking on the link in the show notes.